Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Circo.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. Would you all please rise and join me in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Next on our agenda tonight is our awards and proclamations and our presentations and proclamations. And I have a proclamation tonight that I'd like to give. Recently, the Metro Chiefs and Sheriffs Association had their awards ceremony, and our communications officer, Jackie Lytle, was presented with an award there at their Awards for Valor banquet. And we wanted to follow that up with a proclamation for the good work that she did outside and above and beyond the call of duty. So I would ask Communications Officer Jackie Lytle to please step forward with me here. Oh, you did not. And the proclamation will cover many of the things that, that Jackie is being honored with tonight. So whereas when an emergency occurs, public safety telecommunicators are the first critical point of contact our citizens have with emergency services and must be available 24 hours a day. And whereas Raymore Police Department Communications Officer Jackie Lytle consistently demonstrates skill and professionalism in the performance of her duties. And whereas on July 14th, 2019, at 01:21 hours, that's 1:21 a.m., there was a critical staffing shortage, and Communications Officer Lytle was the sole individual on duty in Raymore Communications, handling all 911 emergency calls, administrative calls, and dispatching for 2 police and 2 fire agencies. And whereas despite this considerable workload and responsibility, Communications Officer Lytle exhibited extraordinary effort upon receiving information about a young woman threatening to take her own life. And whereas Communications Officer Lytle was successful in locating this individual by searching different telephone numbers and addresses, and whereas this multi-jurisdictional effort between the Raymore and Peculiar Police Departments and Lawrence, Kansas Police, Fire, and EMS saved the life of this young woman who had taken an overdose and was unconscious. And whereas the Metropolitan Chiefs and Sheriffs Association recognized the achievement of Raymore Communications Officer Jackie Lytle with the Bronze Award for Valor at its ceremony on November 15th, 2019. Now therefore I, Christopher P. Turnbow, Mayor of the City of Raymore, do hereby call for the citizens of Raymore to honor Communications Officer Jackie Lytle for her service in protecting our safety and for the tremendous favor her actions have reflected upon our community. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Raymore to be affixed this 9th day of December, 2019. Congratulations. And next on our agenda, we have a presentation from the Missouri Department of Conservation, Johnston Lake Improvements. We'll have a conversation as well. Come on up. State your name and address for the record and start your presentation.
I'm Jake Kohlauer, the fish management biologist out of the Kansas City Regional Office. I'm here to present this check from MDC to the City of Raymore for the work.
Excellent.
For the work completed at Johnston Lake.
Well, thank you. Nate, you want to come up and talk about that work?
So this is a presentation of check for a long project that we did at Hawk Ridge Park with our CAPS agreement, which we'll be discussing later on this evening. But This is the reimbursement, the grant that we did that included the ADA fishing dock, the fishing jetty, the restroom, portions of the trail. So as you guys all know, it's getting well used, and we're very pleased and happy to have a relationship with the Department of Conservation as we do. So this is what tonight is for.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate your hard work. Wait for staff to be seated, and then we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Icky.
Yes, sir. I'd like to call on Mr. Carteret for a report from Development Services.
Thank you, sir. Just want to update the council on an upcoming Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, which is a week from tomorrow, on December 17th. We have 4 business items on that agenda, so some significant projects coming forward. First will be the site plan for the Hy-Vee Fast and Fresh store that will be located at the corner of Fox Ridge Drive and Foxwood Drive. Along with that site plan will be the final plat, actually indicating the right-of-ways that will be built. There'll be 2 new streets that surround the perimeter of the Hy-Vee site, and so that final plat will be on the agenda as well. Compass Health and their proposed office building at 501 North Sunset will be having their site plan for consideration that evening. The final item is a public hearing for a proposed indoor and outdoor field house for outdoor recreational activity. There'll be a public hearing associated with this. This use is proposed for the property at the corner of Sunrise and J Highway. So it's the old Russell Karting manufacturing facility. The use intends to locate within the existing buildings on the property, which is permitted. But they also want to do an outdoor recreational field on the vacant lot to the south of the Russell Karting building. So right on the corner of Sunrise and J Highway, they want to do an outdoor recreational field. That requires a conditional use under our code. So we've got that scheduled for that evening. So that one concludes staff report. Those are the only items we currently have scheduled.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions? Mr. Holman.
Just more of a comment. Good report, Mr. Carteret. We've known about the Hy-Vee Fast and Fresh and the Compass Health building for some time, but seeing them move into the basically final phase before we seeing dirt move is obviously coming forward very rapidly, which is a good sign of those 2 new businesses that will be moving on construction soon. We'll actually start seeing, as Mr. Tapp used to say, something going vertical pretty quick. That's good.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Mr. Icky.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to call on Chief Zimmerman for a report from the Police and Emergency Management.
Thank you, Mr. Icky. I would ask Mr. Murdoch, our Emergency Management Director, to come forward to give you an update on the command post vehicle that will be arriving very soon.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to give you a quick update on the mobile command vehicle. We're almost there. It's been 16 months since it was approved, or that the plans were put into process for this particular vehicle, and we are very, very happy to report that next Tuesday, Captain Wilson and I will travel to Burlington, Wisconsin, do a day of training on the vehicle, and we will drive it back next Wednesday, December the 18th, back to Raymore. Just to recap a couple of things with the vehicle, and then I'll actually show you a few pictures here in just a second. It's 40 feet long, so picture just your standard large fire truck. That's how big of a vehicle that we'll be bringing back. It does have a large slide out for the conference area that will be capable of seating up to 10 people comfortably, which you'll see here in just a second. It actually will have the outside briefing area complete with radio, monitor and stuff like that, so people who are gathering at a scene don't necessarily even have to enter the vehicle to be able to see some of the graphics that would be going up. It's another way to incorporate more people at a emergency scene. It'll have full dispatch capability for 2 dispatchers. It doesn't have 911. Chief and I are still working on that one, but it does have 2 consoles for dispatchers, and we can accommodate even a 3rd if necessary for this vehicle. as you look at some of the pictures here, and Mr. Carteret is going to broadcast you some pictures here, I want to call your attention to maybe some things that people won't be able to see because they're already going to get covered up by the time the vehicle actually arrives back here. So in the very first slide, this is pre-production. So after they got the truck, and the number one thing that I think I just kind of want to call your attention to is the control panel that will sit above. That's the huge green that you would be seeing over on the far right picture. This vehicle is going to be able to be controlled and operated and be ready to go in literally just a couple of minutes. Within somebody getting into the vehicle, we'll have a central power area that can operate absolutely everything. It can start all the dispatch centers, it can operate the slide out, it can get the canopy rolled out, it can turn on the outside monitors, operate all radios, everything goes from that main console up front, which is a unique feature to it. It'll have a touch screen on it to be able to operate everything within that particular vehicle. Let's see if I did this right here. Am I doing this right, Mr. Carteret? Oh, it's okay. If you want to just flip, can you flip it on their screen? Because I can do it from, I have it noted here, so. Maybe you'll see more pictures, maybe. So
while we're waiting for that, the
Yeah.
far left one that's being shown right now, that's the outdoor workstation, and
Correct.
there'll be a large screen on that white wall where the two holes are right now, right?
Right, and we have a picture of that if we get to it later. So this
Okay.
is, and then underneath, the reason we had the middle picture there for you is so maximizing storage in this vehicle became obviously really important. And so we'll be able to store underneath all of the seats.
Just in response to what you just said, Mr. Mayor, that one of the things that they found in Joplin, when so many people came to the scene to assist, they were trying to brief, multitudes of individuals, and that's why the outside briefing area became so important, and is such an important addition to what we're doing.
So these next three quick pictures, the reason you're going to see them, the one on the far left is actually the dispatch center before it actually is put into place. In the front of the vehicle, and then it's a little bit hard to see on the big screen, so I'm not sure how it comes through on your computer, is just the long shot of the vehicle from the dispatch center all the way up to the driver's area, just to give kind of an idea of how large of a vehicle we actually are talking about and the amount of capability that we're going to be able to have with this particular vehicle. Then this is the actual dispatch center once they've covered all of that wiring up and put it together for our dispatchers when they come in. The only thing that is missing from this is the touch screens that our dispatchers will be able to use. That has to be installed once it comes back to Raymore. And so those screens that you can see, the two blank areas that are left for it, it's already wired, it's ready to go for it, but those will be installed when it actually comes back to Raymore, and then our dispatchers can be trained on those particular items when it comes back in. So that's a pretty cool feature that they have. This is the conference area of the command vehicle. So the table there that you can see that's folded down will actually be able to connect with the opposite side of the conference room to create one large conference table so that if there is an incident command meeting that needs to happen, they literally will have a nice round table setting that they can go to. Not pictured there, just because we didn't want to overwhelm with too many pictures here tonight, is there are pocket doors on each end of this room to close it off so that you don't get a lot of confusion with dispatchers in the back versus a meeting that might be going on up in the front. We can separate those areas out to make sure that people can have kind of somewhat some kind of privacy if they're needing to do that. Dual monitors up there that can be run with anything on them. They can have dispatch can operate them as well if we needed to put up any information from those. So any computer can be broadcast onto those particular screens that are there in the conference room. The electronics rack, I did include these pictures for a reason. You have the left one here, which is your communications hub that has printer and other office supplies. The middle is the electronics rack that actually will allow us to plug and play as technology increases or new needs are coming in. We'll have access points on the outside of the vehicle and here on the inside of the vehicle to change out equipment and wiring as necessary and not have to take out very much stuff in order to do that. We also also have an increased height in the electronics rack to allow for future technology as well. So there'll be about a third of that will be completely empty, so that we can be ready for future upgrades or additions as they are needed. The right is the small kitchenette that is a part of this. So if it's on a long scene deployment, there is a very small refrigerator, microwave, and stuff like that, so that if people needed that on scene, they would have that capability. On the left, for this particular one right here, is one of the plug-and-play dispatch areas. So this would be our third dispatch station if we absolutely needed it. Obviously, a little bit smaller area, but they would have that particular capability. In the center is the high-definition mast camera that has 360 capabilities to see around the vehicle at all times. Those images can be broadcast to any computer within the vehicle, any monitor within the vehicle, or obviously also could go to the outside briefing areas. They also can be recorded, obviously, if we needed it for security purposes. That camera can record, and we can store those particular images anywhere within the vehicle as well. And so that camera, actually, that's not at its full height in that particular thing. It'll actually go to 15 feet above the vehicle. So it'll get up there. So we'll let Captain Wilson climb up there and do that when he wants to. And then over there on the right, we have, this is truly just a workstation for any person who would enter the vehicle. They can come in and they can immediately plug into the vehicle and have instant access to whatever they needed. So it's got USB ports, and then it's got internet access and all that kind of stuff that they might need as they come into the vehicle. And then lastly here, just one more long shot, and then as Mayor Turnbow mentioned, there's your outside monitor that has been mounted along with the communications equipment to hold any kind of outside briefing that we may need with that particular vehicle. It's pretty cool. One kind of side note here today is it is at the graphics shop today in Wisconsin, getting the Raymore seal put on it, along with some other artwork that's going on it, basically a blue stripe. We didn't get too fancy, obviously. So it is at the graphics shop today, and then it'll be back to the dealership on Thursday, and we probably will be able to send out a couple of pictures of what the outside looks like, because it's pretty cool too. So with that, I think I would ask if you guys have any questions related to the vehicle.
Any questions, anybody?
Because then I have one other thing.
Yes, Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ryan, you said that we're going to add the touch screens in it. What else will it need once it gets here to be fully turnkey and ready to go?
So it needs the touchscreens, and it will need software installations based on our dispatch programming needs and computer programming needs. Then outside of that, the only other thing that will get installed is the Allegiant phone system, which has already been ordered. It's ready to go. The whole plan is to have it ready for deployment right after the first of the year.
That was my next question, so thank you for that.
There you
Appreciate
go.
it.
Yeah.
Good briefing.
And as Mr. Murdoch had indicated, there are the technical items as well as the software update that we still need to install once it's here on site. I know we had briefly talked about possibly having an open house for the council at the next work session. Because of some of these technical updates, we'd like to push that open house to the first meeting, that January 6th meeting, that we'd have the vehicle here be fully up to capacity and ready for the council to view.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
I have one other thing, sorry.
Yeah, no,
I just wanted to call your attention to a weekly update item that was sent to you guys last week, that we did have an audit by the state of Missouri. Emergency Management came and looked at our program and grant compliance for our emergency management performance grant. We met all 60 criteria that they gave us, which is fantastic. And I just wanted kind of in public to also give a huge shout out to Lisa Williams in finance, who does an amazing job of processing all of those claims, grant payments, keeping all of our financial documents and controls in order, because that was a large part of this review as well. Those two things have to work in tandem for the program to really work. So I just wanted to call your attention to that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Lisa. Anything else, Mr. Icky?
Yes, sir. Just wanted to update you on next week's work session. We'll be holding our joint meeting with the Chamber of Commerce. We'll also be hearing an update from the Public Works Department as well as the Communications Department on our snow operations and communications. We've been lucky so far to avoid any major severe weather, so we're hopefully not going to be jinxing it by now talking about the operations here at the city. We'll also be discussing an updated timeline for the proposed bond issue projects that we had discussed at a previous work session.
Okay. Anything else?
That does it for staff reports. Thank you, sir.
Any questions of staff before we move on? Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda. We only have the one item on the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to dispose of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented to include item A, City Council minutes from the November 25th, 2019 meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. We'll now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3503 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3503 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri approving the Edgewater at Creekmore 7th Plat, lots 219 through 229, and tracts I and J, located in Section 4, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman.
I move that we approve Bill 3503, Edgewater at Creekmore 7th Plat.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3503. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3500 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3500 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri adopting and enacting a revised code of ordinances and providing for the repeal of certain ordinances not included therein, except as expressly provided.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman.
I move that we approve Bill 3500, recodification of the Raymore Municipal Code of Ordinances.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3500. Is there any further discussion? I know we've had a lot of discussions over this particular item, a lot of work, blood, sweat, and tears by the staff putting this together. And I want to tell you how proud I am of all of you for the work that you all put into this. I know it took a lot to come to this, and I really do appreciate everything that you've done. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3491 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3491 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri approving an agreement with Mid-America Regional Council Solid Waste Management District relating to the Regional Household Hazardous Waste Program.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman.
I move that we approve Bill 3491, mark Household Waste Agreement, Hazardous Household Waste Agreement.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3491. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3510 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3510 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri establishing an agreement to purchase and install playground equipment at Recreation Park with Game Time CO, Cunningham Recreation.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman.
I move that we approve Bill 3510, Recreation Park Playground Replacement, Game Time Play Equipment.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3510. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. We'll now move on to new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3507 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3507 by title only, an ordinance approving a settlement agreement between Fred and Susan Ashbaugh, trustees of the Fred Ashbaugh and Susan Ashbaugh Revocable Living Trust dated August 22nd, 1996 in the City of Raymore, and also authorizing the execution of a bill of sale and temporary access and construction easement pursuant to the terms of said settlement agreement.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Yes, sir. I'd like to call on Mr. Zer to give that report.
Your Honor, thank you, Mr. Icky. For the staff report on this, this is improvements performed at Hawks Ridge Park included the installation of a conduit providing electrical service to the restrooms as well as the amphitheater. As part of that installation, the conduit was installed on Mr. Ashbaugh's property that caused some damage to that property. When alerted of that, we had the opportunity to negotiate a resolution which included the installation of a new conduit on the side of the city of Raymore, and then the resolution included a payment to Mr. Ashbaugh for his troubles and damages, along with a temporary access and construction easement allowing the city to restore his property in good condition. It also involves the abandonment and the transfer of the original conduit installed upon his property so as to avoid further damage to it. Staff is recommending approval of the settlement agreement and requesting that we be authorized to proceed forward with regard to the proposed settlement. That would conclude staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Holman?
And I think I know the answer to this, Mr. Zer, but just for clarification, that work was actually done by a contractor and not the city. Is that correct, sir?
That is 100% correct, and we are in talks with that contractor to make the city whole again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3507, approvement of a settlement agreement, temporary access and construction easement.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3507. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3516 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3516 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the purpose of making sidewalk improvements to Fox Ridge Drive.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Yes, sir. I'd like to call on Mr. Krass to give that report.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Icky. Mr. Mayor, members of the council. What you have before you this evening is a funding agreement with the Missouri Department of Transportation for the construction of a sidewalk along Fox Ridge Drive from Drake Lane to Creekmore Drive. We do recommend approval of the agreement.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3516, award of contract, MoDOT Transportation Alternatives Fund.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3516. Any further discussion? Ms. Abdelgawad?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe I should have asked this during questions, but quick question. This isn't normally how we go about getting sidewalks in the city. Can you give us a little bit of history as to how this has happened? Different than we usually do sidewalks.
Sure, this particular segment was not programmed as part of our sidewalk program, but as the school district increased its pedestrian areas, we applied for a Safe Routes to School grant and received $150,000 towards the construction cost of approximately $180,000.
Anyone else? Hearing nothing else, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the reading of Resolution 1967 by title only?
The reading of Resolution 19-67 by title only, a resolution of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the schedule of fees.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Yes, sir. I'd like to call on Mrs. Williams to give that report.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Before you this evening for your consideration is a resolution to amend our schedule of fees. During the review of city code, staff identified fees that needed to be either added to or deleted from our schedule of fees. Those changes in your packet are all listed in red, each change that was made. The schedule of fees has been modified to include expanded liquor license categories, public amusement permit fee, and wording modification for refundable cash deposit rather than a litter bond. adult business license fees, sewer discharge fees, grease trap fees, right-of-way management fees, the Unified Development Code listed CD fees, and it was adjusted to match the meeting CD fees under miscellaneous, and deleting both curb loading zone and news rack permit fees. And that's all.
Any question? Mr. Holman?
Yes, Ms. Williams, good report. Just so it's clear to everybody, as opposed to, say, a private business that might say, hey, our costs have gone up on selling hamburgers, let's raise the price. This is actually a comprehensive review that's done every year. For example, a change in fees in adult businesses, of which we have none. We are staying current with trends and benchmarks, appropriate benchmarks. Is that a correct assessment?
That's correct.
No, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. By the way, did you want to tell us what happened last Friday in Topeka?
I've been going to the KU Public Management Center for the last year to work on becoming a certified public manager, and I graduated on Friday.
Hey, congratulations. Thank you, Lisa. If there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Resolution 19-67, amending the schedule of fees.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution 19-67. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could we please have the first reading of Bill 3512 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3512 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Westgate plat, lots 1 through 4, located in the southwest quarter of Section 8, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Yes, I'd like to call on Mr. Carteret for this report.
Thank you, sir. This request is for final plat approval of the Westgate subdivision. This is a 4-lot subdivision proposed for land area north of 58 Highway and east of Kentucky Road. This plat covers just under 28 acres. The purpose of the final plat that was submitted by the city is to establish the right-of-way that's necessary for Westgate Drive. This is a proposed roadway segment that was included as part of our 2016 general obligation bond election. Westgate Drive will connect Kentucky Road with the traffic signal that's currently on 58 Highway at the entrance to the Raymore Galleria Shopping Center. This has been referenced as a relocated Kentucky Road, but the idea is to get north and southbound traffic that utilizes Kentucky Road to the lighted intersection on 58 Highway. The right-of-way and the roadway within the right-of-way were designed to try to have minimal impact on the existing farm pond that's on the property, as well as to avoid the residential properties to the west. That's why you see a little bit of curve in the roadway as it crosses through the property. The plat covers land that's owned by 2 different ownership groups, one being Block and Company for the commercial area north of Firestone. The other tract of land is owned by the Dean Family Trust. I've had conversations with both property owners about the plat, and they are in agreement in moving forward with this plat. The Planning Commission did submit findings of fact for your consideration on this plat. It was at their December 3rd meeting that they voted 9-0 to forward the final plat to the council with a recommendation of approval. I did include an excerpt of the minutes of that meeting. They did have discussion and some questions on the plat. I wanted to share that with the council. That concludes staff report.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Holman?
Mr. Carteret, thank you very much. Can you tell me off the top of your head when Lowe's was built?
I'm going to say 2006, 2007 timeframe.
So in excess of a decade, 10 years. And at that time, the intent of the city was for the development of this road to come to this light to alleviate the pressure off of the existing Kentucky Road and improve public safety, correct, sir?
That is correct. It was part of the master plan that was in place, yes.
Just checking my facts, sir. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions of staff? Jim, I forgot to ask at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, but if you're looking at the actual architectural map, a design of the roadway, Down toward the bottom of the map, the two black dots that intersect there on the one property line. I know you see where the road comes down as 2-lane, but then it feeds into almost a 4-lane area. How are we, and maybe Mike can answer me on this one, how are we marking that for the opening that spreads out real quick right there? It kind of, you see what I'm talking about? It comes down 2 lanes and then goes out to the larger opening that now exists.
What we're looking at on the plat is the actual right-of-way width, so you won't be able to discern the difference. The pavement width will be consistent going from the existing pavement between Firestone and China Star. The pavement and the curb lines will be continual going through. It's just the right-of-way is much wider there besides Firestone.
Okay.
We ended up being able to reduce the right-of-way as you went north. The road will narrow it down slightly.
I got you. Okay. Thank you. I forgot to ask that the other night. I had a question. Anything else? Anybody have anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I proudly move that we approve Bill 3512, Westgate Final Plat.
Thank you. Is there a second?
And I will second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3512. Any further discussion? Mr. Holman?
I've talked about this project dating back to my days on planning and zoning. You all know on the council, obviously, you've heard the comments from Chief Zimmerman. The location or the intersection of Kentucky and 58 is one of our top 5, if not our top 3 or 2, depending upon the year, collision locations within the city. The relocation of this road will greatly improve public safety and reduce collisions and improve public safety for our citizens. So if you hadn't figured out, I'm strongly in support of this measure.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll add on to that. On my rookie year of being a city councilman, I mistakenly made the comment that you could find a stoplight, but you had to go into another town, and my colleague to the right of me corrected me and said, we are not going to have our citizens go into another town for safety reasons. So I'm glad to get this project going, and I learned a valuable lesson, too, that day.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Serco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to reiterate on that, too, because for years, when I had my farm's insurance, just me alone, not counting some of my other colleagues in State Farm, so I would average about 4 to 5 accidents in that area a year or more. And that's just my agency alone. It was so bad. Rear end, people stopping, cutting, side. It was a horrible intersection. It still is. So I really look forward to this road going in for primary safety concerns to get this road in so we can alleviate that problem on the corner of that Kentucky and 58.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Okay, please have the first reading of Bill 3513 by title only.
The first reading of Bill 3513 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, adopting and enacting a revised Chapter 500, building regulations of the Raymore City Code.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Yes, sir. I'd like to call on Mr. Carteret for that report.
Thank you, sir. Building construction activity within the city is currently governed by the 2012 series of the International Building Codes. The international codes are updated every 3 years on a 3-year cycle. And Raymore, like most of the communities within the Kansas City metro area, update the codes on a 6-year cycle. So in anticipation of bringing forward to council a request to adopt the 2018 series of these codes, our building official assembled a building code review committee. This committee was made up of representatives from our city-appointed Building Board of Appeals, as well as other contractors from other trades, plumbing, electrical, general contractor. We wanted a wide variety of building trade professionals to review not only the international series of codes, but also what amendments should be done on the local level to those codes. It's customary when you look at universal codes like the international codes to make local amendments to make them applicable to the building trades within your community. Each community across the country is slightly different. So this committee spent several meetings going through the series of codes, making local amendments, and that's submitted to you this evening as an update to our Chapter 500 of our city code, our building regulations. The committee does recommend adoption of these 2018 series of the international codes, and again, the corresponding updates to our Chapter 500 of our city code. City building official John Warner, who worked on this code amendment for you this evening, is here if you have any specific questions about the code. That concludes staff report.
Okay, thank you. This is discussed quite a bit in work session, but anybody have any questions of staff? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3513, adoption of the 2018 International Building Codes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3513. Any further discussion? Mr. Holman?
Yes, sir. I think you were looking for this earlier. I did bring up some concerns at our last work session about one small specific area of the code, which dealt with fire codes, basically, which are not enforced actually by the city, but by South Metro. And I am guilty of being on planning and zoning too long. I'm very comfortable and used to Mr. Cadderet's approach to things, and he immediately offered to compare the previous codes that we had to this, and I was used to the old days of planning and zoning where I would get it in a couple weeks or next month, and they had it for me before I got out the door. And so I saw that basically that we really didn't have any changes from what we had recently passed. My memory's not quite what we used to be, and there were a couple things that I missed, and I think the gang tackled me with about 3 people and showed me everything. So I don't have those concerns anymore. Just wanted to let everybody know I'm good with everything.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Holman waited till December to have his one error, so that you almost went the whole year. But I want to commend staff, Mr. Cadderat, Mr. Warner. I mean, I think that was brilliant to put the committee together and get the tradespeople involved and the people that are actually going to be doing the work in the city to help be part of the process. And I'm sure there was some cussing and discussion, but I think it was, again, I think it was brilliant and great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3514 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3514 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the Community Assistant Program Agreement with the Missouri Department of Conservation for Johnston Lake.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Yes, sir. I'd like to call on Mr. Mustine for that report.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, members of the council, tonight before you is an amended CAPS agreement. This is the agreement that we talked about earlier this evening with Johnston Lake. This is a partnership with the Department of Conservation and the City of Raymore to manage the fishery and the biology of the water quality at Johnston Lake. And in addition, it obligates us and requires Department of Conservation to partner with us in maintaining the facilities that we put around the lake. So tonight's amendment is, the original agreement was in 2016. Tonight's amendment removes the language that had the cost share program for the amenities now that was satisfied this evening. So this moves us forward in that partnership with MDC. It also continues the very popular trout stocking program that we have there, and it does not lengthen the agreement. It just rephrases some of the obligations that we have after tonight's grant award. And that concludes staff report.
All right. Any questions, Nathan? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3514, Community Assistance Program Amendment, Johnston Lake.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3514. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3515 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3515 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri to enter into a community assistance program agreement with the Missouri Department of Conservation for recreational park pond.
Thank you. A staff report on that?
Yes, sir. I'd like to call on Mr. Mustine.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, members of council. Again, we have two bodies of water here within our park system. Recreation Park Pond is one at down on South Madison. For years, that particular body of water was very shallow, not well maintained in terms of what we could do with the water and the pond itself, but very popular in terms of fishing. This past summer, we did a project where we basically drained it and rebuilt the pond and started over. And if you've been by it, it looks fantastic. Due to that project, we now qualify for a community assistance program agreement with Department of Conservation. Given our experience at Johnston Lake and what they've been able to do with us, we highly recommend that we enter a 25-year agreement with that department to help us maintain and manage Recreation Park Pond. And that concludes staff report.
Excellent. Any questions of staff? Thank you, Nathan. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3515, Community Assistance Program, Recreation Park Pond.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3515. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3504 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3504 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute an extended and amended employment agreement with Jim Fearborn for service as the city manager.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Yes, sir. I'd like to call on Mr. Zur for this report.
Thank you, Mr. Eakery. Mayor, members of the council, you have before you this evening the amended and extended proposed contract for services by Mr. Jim Fearborn to serve as city manager. As you'll recall, from October and November, you all had the opportunity to complete his annual review, and based upon the annual review and the results, as well as your recommendations, we have provided proposed changes on the contract to increase the base salary according to your instructions and to extend it out to 2021. It also includes within it language for inclusion of a cellular telephone allowance, which is allowed for all city employees, and we are incorporating that into this as well. I'm happy to answer any questions for you, and I would like to specifically thank Councilmember Abdelgawad for providing me with some quick updates and clearing up the couple of the dates in it from the last draft. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3504, approval of amended and restated employment agreement, city manager.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve this first reading of Bill 3504. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3505 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3505 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, appointing Kapke and Willerth, LLC, as the city attorney and authorizing the execution of a contract for services.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Yes, sir. The item before the council this evening is the renewal of the contract with Kapke and Willerth, appointing Jonathan Zur as the city attorney. 4 years ago, following a request for qualifications and interviews, the mayor and city council chose the firm of Kapke and Willerth, LLC, to serve and to designate Jonathan Zur as the city attorney. Before that time, Mr. Zur had been the attorney serving the staff role in Planning and Zoning Commission since 2004. In 2017 and again in November of 2019, the council reviewed Mr. Zur's service and expressed their desire to have a formal contract brought before them to reappoint Kapke and Willerth and Mr. Zur as our city attorney for a 2-year period from February 1, 2020 through January 31st, 2022. The item is before you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3505, award of contract, city attorney.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3505. Any further discussion? Mr. Holman?
Just that I think Kapke and Willer's service to the city has been impeccable, and Mr. Zur's service as our close confidant and city attorney has been impeccable as well. I am glad to have him on the team.
I would agree, as would the rest of the folks here on the council, I'm sure. Thank you very much. Anyone else? If there's nothing else, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3506 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3506 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, appointing William N. Marshall III as city prosecutor and authorizing the execution of a contract for services.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
I'd like to call on Mr. Zur.
Thank you. As part of the staff report, I also comment that I'm humbled and honored, and thank you very much. For this staff report, I would provide for you the same answers or the same analysis that Mr. Icky provided for ours. 4 years ago, the city put out a request for qualifications for service as city prosecutor. Mr. William N. Marshall III has previously served as the city prosecutor and was then appointed to serve moving forward. That was again extended in 2017. What you have before you this evening is an ordinance and a proposed contract that would extend that out to January 31st, 2022 for Mr. Marshall serving under the same arrangements as before. So no changes with regard to the proposed contract. I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have, and that would conclude staff report.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 3506, award of contract city prosecutor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3506. Any further discussion? Mr. Holman?
A carbon copy of my comments about Mr. Zur towards Mr. Marshall.
Thank you. Would also agree. He's done a great service for this city for a long time, and he's a great guy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Now move on to public comments. If anybody from the public would like to address the council at this time, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. No one? Okay. Well, we'll close the public comments and move on to mayor-council communication. And Mr. Berenson, I'll start with you tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess you caught me off guard a little bit. I'll just touch on one quick thing. We covered quite a bit tonight. Maybe for those American government students, you picked a good meeting to come to. We touched on a lot of things, and if you're lucky, maybe Mr. Holman will do a better recap than I ever could. The one thing I will touch on, two things. Very happy to see the emergency management vehicle arriving soon. So look forward to seeing that getting here and fully operational here within a month or so. And then I didn't mention this earlier, but I want to thank the Building Code Review Committee, Mr. Werner, and the rest of city staff for all the work they did on upgrading or updating our municipal codes. It would have been very easy for them to just blanketly, adopt the 2018 codes in whole, but instead of doing that, they went through each section and they actually didn't replace some of that because they thought it would be too much of a burden and maybe a cost for some of our developers. So hats off to you for the hard work that you did and for looking out for our citizens and our developers here in this area. I want to thank you for all the work you did. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I have to say I agree with Mr. Berenson on the international building codes, that amendment, and as Mr. Barber said earlier, the committee of people to get together and go through that, and as was shared at our work session, they could have rushed through that real quick and gotten it in with the codes that we changed on as a second read tonight, but they didn't. They took their time and did it the right way, and so that's why it's separate. So again, congratulations, kudos to the city for doing things the right way. We're always proud up here to see that. The command vehicle is super exciting. I can't wait to see that. There was really so much that we did tonight. The programs to work on the lakes and keep them healthy. I think that's something to be proud of. I know people from Raymore drive around other places and see waterways that are not so healthy. And here in Raymore, I take pride in the fact that our city staff really takes care of the things that we have. A new playground at Rec Park, that's really exciting. I think to people in the city, young and old, a lot of, like we said a couple weeks ago, a lot of work, a lot of months and even years with the ordinances of work finally being passed tonight. We officially rehired 3 of our very best employees, 3 people very important to the city, and so I'll finish with a welcome back, and it's been a pleasure working with you to those 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barber.
I don't have much to add to that. I agree with both of my colleagues. It's very well said. And I would speak out a little bit to the government students that it kind of looks like it's real easy up here and we're really fast and we kind of go through all this, but a lot of our work is done at the work sessions where we get educated on all these topics. We don't come into this meeting surprised by anything. So if you review one of our work sessions one time, normally they run longer than our council meetings, and that's kind of where the work is done. But I'm just going to reiterate that the rehiring of the three important people to our city government is something that we don't take lightly either. And I think we got a good team, and they work very well together, which they should. And I'm glad to have them back. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. I would start off by concurring with all the comments that we've heard thus far. And for the American government students, I have in the past done a Cliff Notes version of this so that you can kind of catch up if you missed something. We did cover a lot of things tonight. Council member Abdelgawad covered a number of them in her comments, and I'm not going to go through it because I think you're a smart enough group you can figure it out, plus you've got the document in front of you. I am going to go a little off topic. The mayor may have this prepared for his comments tonight, but and unfortunately, it's an item now. If you don't catch the blurb in the news or a story on the internet, there was an officer that was ambushed and killed in Arkansas. It was yesterday, wasn't it, Mr. Mayor? Yeah. Sitting in his patrol car behind the police department. Never had a chance. Unfortunately, that is becoming all too common in today's world, and so I would ask that if you pray, that you do so for the officer's family and the community and keep them in your thoughts. And that's all I have this evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I concur on the council here, and a lot of good things were said tonight. So I do concur. I do thank the students for being here. I know it's getting close to Christmas break, so a lot of you are here tonight, I guess, to get whatever credit you need. And you had a good night for that. Thank you. And as Mr. Barber said, there's a lot of work sessions go on. So a lot of this stuff is debated, and we go through a lot of it before we get here. So we understand a lot of this stuff before it reaches us here on a Monday night. It's council night. On the command vehicle, Chief, we've been waiting for that. I'm excited to see that next month when it gets here and get there and review that. It's going to be a good addition. The codes team, again, we said the codes team, what work they did on these codes, the staffing and stuff on that, was a lot of work and a lot of hours, and he had a fantastic job. Glad to see all the good updates, the changes. Mr. Mustine, again, thank you for all the work you do with the parks. You got the lakes, you got the pond. You work so hard to get different money adapted to the city to help cover a lot of our expenses. You do such a good job, you and your staff. The parks look good. We got the fish are in. People are enjoying all the parks and the ponds. Thank you for all that, sir. Again, on Jackie Lytle, what a fantastic job. I mean, what can you say? She's here. She took it on shorthanded, and she saved a young girl's life. I mean, you can't say much of that. That's just phenomenal in its own right. And a very good thank you and applaud for Jackie for all the work she does. I mean, our whole staff and how good they are trained, what they do. But I hope people understand, this is just not any common city. This is a great city with great staff and great people in it. Lisa, for all the work you do, it's phenomenal. I mean, I know you do a lot of work to keep the city in compliance with everything. You're always there. And thanks you, Lisa, for all you're doing. You do a fantastic job. And again, everybody, have a good night, and thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to say I'm kind of interested to look through the P&Z packet next week. We've got 3 things coming that we've been hearing about. I know one of them, the Compass Health Center, I watched on Election Day, taking out all those trees, which was not actually part of the parcel where it's going to be built, I will say. But so people have commented on that, because when you see a large area of trees go out, people are like, well, how come nothing's happened? And things happen very slow. But it's pretty exciting. The Hy-Vee Fast and Fresh is going to be cool. A different different take on what they're doing. Looks like we'll be able to pick up meal kits is kind of the concept, so that's kind of interesting. But the Compass Health is definitely something our community can use. And one of the people that's working there is a former student of mine, so I'm pretty proud of her. And also the field house that's coming, that's going to be another opportunity. The business on where Russell Karting was, I forget the actual name of the business, but that's going to be another opportunity to have more choices of things to do in the community, and that's going to be great. Also, I wanted to thank the Warners for being with us here for their date night. It's a pretty exciting date. Didn't even get to sit next to each other at the same table. But I wanted to thank Mrs. Warner for the packet was only 767 pages this week. It was 995 2 weeks ago. And I did notice that you did not print all the codes another time. So we saved about 2,000 pieces of paper. It doesn't sound like very much, but it's both sides. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a great week.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to say I agree with everything said in advance. There's really nothing left for me to say except ditto, and that's all I have this evening. Thanks, sir.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Townsend.
Same. I'm going to echo the same comments of my colleague and yield the balance of my time. But I am disappointed that Mr. Holman did not do a Star Wars recap with the movie coming out this week. Usually you do that for us, but I'll yield my time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You yield your time. You guys are watching way too much of the impeachment hearings. The great thing about this city is that the things that we've done here tonight, and it was a large amount of official work done here tonight, and a big part of it was keeping good people, and it's kind of like the old saying, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, and that's what we're doing. We're keeping it together as a team, that we've got quality people on staff, those that continue to train, like Lisa, and get her degree and work toward excellence in her field of study. And we're just excited about how this team works together, both elected and the staff here, the appointed staff. Just excited about the future for this community and our continued work. And Nate, congratulations to you on your continued work with Missouri Department of Conversation again. Said it again. Can't get that out of my head tonight. Hey, how's the ice rink going, by the way?
This week's cold temperatures are really helpful.
Getting close. Cold temperature. Cold is good for ice, right? Do you think it might be open anytime soon?
I would say before Christmas we're going to try, but I'm not promising anything.
Sometime before Christmas? I'm just trying to repeat because nobody can hear you on the microphone.
I don't want to make any promises, but we're working hard on it.
Okay. All right. We appreciate that. And with cold weather, hopefully we'll get it open sooner than later. Well, thank you. And then finally, my thanks to Jackie Lytle. In my 36 years as a cop myself, you come across these rare dispatchers that have an intuition to look into things further and to move forward with that information when not asked to do it, but they know it's the right thing to do. And this is a great example of that, where Jackie knew that she could provide additional assistance to help someone even though it wasn't in our community, worked with multiple agencies, and it's an amazing story when it succeeds like that. And it continues to inspire other dispatchers to think outside the box when a situation occurs, rather than doing just what is necessary. And I think that's what happened in this case. And knowing how those dispatchers, my daughter's one, I know how she works, and I know she'd be very proud of Jackie too and the work that she did. So great people, great staff. We're moving upward. And with that, I will close, and we don't have a reason to go into executive, do we?
If you'll allow me, just one more quick announcement.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd like to hand it over to Chief Zimmerman to talk about one of my favorite events here around the holiday.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Icky. I should have talked about this earlier during our staff report. Tomorrow night is Shop with a Cop,
right.
And I would invite all of you to come out. We'll be over at the Rack We'll be entertaining the kids over there as we bus them back and forth to Walmart. But we are actually serving 45 kids this year and are really excited about that. And a huge thank you out to our community, because all of the money that gets donated through the foundation and other means allows us to add additional children on to shop with. So it's one of my absolute most fun events of the year, and I'm really looking forward to tomorrow night. So we'll start about 5:30 out at the rack, and the kids all eat dinner. Their families come and have dinner with us, and we entertain them between shopping. And we have lots of volunteers coming to wrap presents, and it's just a great, great event. So
So are you going to bring the presents back to Centerview to wrap?
Yes.
Rather than do it in store?
not Centerview, to the rack.
Oh, to the rack.
Yes.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I apologize. All right. What time are your volunteers showing up?
5:30.
5:30? Okay. And I think we have another event that we missed out on. You want to talk about that, Mr. Behrens?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We were remiss. We forgot to mention there is a Ward 4 Town Hall meeting this Thursday at 6:30, and that is at Centerview.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Nothing from staff.
Yes.
So just judging by the reaction of our American government students, when you mentioned the ice rink, there were lots of heads turning, asking questions. I know we've drugged this on, but it might be just worth mentioning a little bit about the ice rink. I'm not sure they're very familiar with it, sir.
Oh, well, Nate, you want to come up and talk about it a little bit? You or Steve? You guys have been doing the grunt work on that.
They were wondering where.
Yeah, probably so.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay, so the ice rink is part of our 2016 bond issue projects where we're taking TB Hannah Station. It's the small park right behind the old First Baptist Church, which is now the Fellowship Church. That project will be going under construction, the entire park, but ahead of that, we're building an ice rink underneath the picnic shelter that's there. So we have built it, customized it to fit under that shelter. We're currently trying to get ice to form, but we need cold weather, and that's what we're getting this week. So once it's up and we have the proper amount of ice and it's safe, we'll do kind of a grand opening and make that announcement, and then you can come skate anytime you want. Any questions?
And you have to bring your own skates. Sorry, we don't have any skate rentals yet.
At this time.
At this time, that's right. We're working on it.
We're working on it.
Okay, thank you, Nathan.
You bet.
You bet. Anything else, Mr. Iggy? I would entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn this session of the Raymore City Council.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.